Hello, you are most welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Real Impartation Moment on Tuesday Night Anatomy with Daniel Okwan. Today's section, we continue our journey on muscles of facial expression, and this is the fourth part. And this muscle that we are going to look at is the Occipitofrontalis, muscle, that muscle which covers the dome of the skull. This muscle is actually having two parts, the occipital part and of course the frontal part, and therefore it is going to have a dual nerve supply. For instance, the occipital part will be supplied by, of course, the posterior auricular branch of the facial nerve. Then, of course, the frontal part will be supplied by, of course, the temporal branch of what we call the facial nerve, making this muscle actually a hybrid muscle. Okay. Then, of course, in between them, there will be, connected via a very good aponeurosis, a very strong aponeurosis known as Gallia aponeurotica or epicranial aponeurosis. This muscle is actually very important, as far as wrinkling of the forehead is concerned. So, and of course, raising of the eyebrow, is concerned. And so, without much ado, let's set the ball rolling, looking at the Occipitofrontalis, muscle. So there we are. Now, if you can see, you can see the skeleton of, the skull. And what we are interested in is that if you look at the dome of the skull being, of course, the scalp. Okay, so there's a scalp. Now, this scalp, what we find is that we can see there's one portion fleshy muscle over here that's anteriorly placed, and of course, one also being posteriorly placed. And then they are connected via this white intestine that we find over here. And this white intestine we find over here is what we call Gallia aponeurotica, or something we call epicranial, aponeurosis. Epi is above, so epicranial aponeurosis. And of course, I don't need to tell you that aponeurosis will connect muscle to muscle. So that is what we actually see. That kind of broad, flat, glistering tendon that you connect these muscles together. That's an aponeurosis. But because it's above the cranial cavity, epicranial, aponeurosis or Gallia aponeurotica. So as I said, yes, we are going to have an occipital belly, and then of course we're also going to have a frontal belly, and they are connected by this. Now, if you look at it, the occipital, belly, or let me say the occipital part, because even if you look at the occipital belly, it's also going to have two bellies actually, and if you look at the frontal belly, it's also going to have two bellies. So let me say we are going to have an occipital part and a frontal part. Now, if you look at the occipital part, okay, then what is happening is that it's going to arise, somewhere from what we call the superior nuchal line. That's the origin of what we call the occipital, belly of what we call the occipitofrontalis muscle. And then eventually it inserts in this Gallia aponeurotica we are talking about, Gallia aponeurotica. So from the superior nuchal line, and then of course inserting in what we call the Gallia aponeurotica is what we call the occipital belly of the occipitofrontalis muscle. Then, of course, if you look at the frontal belly, where this one inserted, that's where it's going to originate. So, actually, the origin, if you look at the origin, okay, of what we call the frontal belly of what we call the occipitofrontalis muscle is going to, happen, around where we have the skin, yes, roughly at the level, where we have the skin, okay, around where the eyebrow is. Okay, and of course where these muscles which cover the bridge of the nose is, that's where the frontal belly is going to originate, and it also goes posteriorly to insert in what we call the Gallia aponeurotica. So that is that is the occipitofrontalis muscle. So what are we saying? So in another view, so as you can see, if you look at the occipital belly, okay, you can see the actual consists of two bellies, okay, two bellies making up this kind of occipital belly. And I said it's coming from the superior nuchal line, okay, which you find it on the occipital bone, okay, then actually coming to insert in this Gallia aponeurotica. Therefore, because of its position, because it's, yes, more posteriorly related, closer to the ear, it will be supplied by, of course, the posterior auricular, branch of the facial nerve. Then if you look at the frontal belly or the frontal part, it's also having two bellies, okay, one here and one over here, okay, and this one will be supplied, okay, by what we call the the temporal branch of the facial nerve. Okay, so that is what we are saying. But at the end of the day, yes, all of them will be inserted, okay, in the gallia aponeurotica. And we said that this muscle will be very important in actually moving the scalp, okay, in causing wrinkling of the forehead, okay, and as well as raising, the eyebrow. Okay, so that is what I have for you today regarding muscle of the scalp. So I hope you find this tutorial helpful. Okay, we will continue and of course end with these kind of muscles of facial expression in our future videos. Have a good night, all of you, and may the good Lord richly bless you.